I said I'd pass on signs of hope that many in the media are ignoring. I mean, it seems the whole nation has lost its head. But I also said I wouldn't give you false hope. So I will tell you that Britain, France, Spain and New York overnight recorded their biggest daily death tolls from the coronavirus. And what's happening now in much poorer countries, Indonesia, India, God only knows how bad that will get. But in Australia, again, I have to say there's cautious reasons for hope. I just wish that would dawn on more people more quickly. The rate of spread of this virus was the lowest in the 24 hours to 3 p.m, the lowest since this crisis began. Still an increase, yes, but it's of 6.6%. It used to be about 35%. One of our Deputy Chief Medical Officers was pretty pleased about that.
I think it's clear that we've landed a punch on COVID-19, but it's by no means on the canvas. And the reason that punch has been landed is because of the extremely strict travel-related and quarantine measures, including Australians having to be in hotels. This is a promising sign, but we need to be very cautious, and it is no time to take our foot off the accelerator.
Note what he said, particularly because we stopped people coming in with the virus and we quarantine people. Those are the elements we should be talking about. And the most important thing today, of course, that we can at least be certain we are not going to see anything like the 150,000 deaths that were predicted by many in the media. In the past day, we did get 2 more deaths. A woman, 95 years old, 95, and a man whose details aren't being released. Now, those deaths are tragic, but it still means we have just 21 people who have died so far. All of them old, many very old. All of them, with the possible exception of this latest man, of course. But many of the dead had also been very sick before the virus. 2 were in hospital for cancer, for instance. So let me say again, I'm not, of course, saying that these lives do not matter. What I am saying is they suggest 2 important things. And the first is this: the vast majority of younger Australians are highly unlikely to die from this virus. Some will, maybe, but they'd be the exceptions. And the second is that when we know exactly which group is the most at risk, which is the very old, and those with conditions like cancer or diabetes, we can focus more on protecting them rather than sentencing all Australians to virtual house arrest, because that too, it's becoming clear, comes at a terrible cost to many people. I mean, for instance, you think of all the people now sitting at home. They've just lost their jobs, they've been humiliated, their savings are running out, but now they're also not allowed to go outside in most states, except for essentials. They're not allowed even to invite a friend over. Well, they can invite just one, but that's only if they're single. A couple can't invite any. They're not even allowed to go out to visit their family. Now, I got an email. I won't say from whom. I'll just say she's a widow, doesn't have a job anymore, lives alone. She writes, "I am losing hope, and I fear I'm being punished, put in a solitary confinement. Now I feel I'm completely isolated, forgotten, and that I cannot reach out to my family and friends. I would like to know why. Why are we all punished? Why such restrictive actions? Are they necessary? Well, I don't think they need to be. Not now that we've made so much progress. Now, of course, we do need to do a bit more yet to make sure that people who are supposed to be in quarantine stay there. Don't do enough there. And we do need to do a lot more to protect people in aged care and the elderly at home. But then, in a couple of weeks from now, we have to, we'll be able to, if we do this, we have to start loosening some of these other restrictions before people break. I mean, domestic violence centres are already having phones ring off the hook, and you wait for the suicides. If this goes for the 6 months, the government says, those suicides, I don't want to put ideas in people's minds, but we have to face a reality here. Suicides could end up higher than these 21 coronavirus deaths, and people in the government know that. But let me go to some other news today. Some more signs of this fear, this panic, and this fierce, probably right over the top response is making us lose all sense of proportion. I'm not just talking about laws that are now so extreme that a woman in Sydney sitting by herself in a public park was fined today. Can someone please explain to me how this woman, on her own, mask on, posed any real threat to the health of anyone at all? Then there's this absolute nonsense of Victoria, where the Premier now sounds like a real authoritarian, getting a bit of a taste for it. You can't even visit your partner if she or he lives somewhere else.
That's not work, that's not caregiving, that's not medical care, that's not shopping for the things you need when you need them, and it's, you know, it's not, it does not comply with the rules. So people should not do that.
What's going in this man's head? I mean, what does the Premier think it will do to couples to keep them apart for 6 months? And how risky is it really to let these two people, a couple already, meet? It would have to be, the chances of them infecting each other would have to be so close to zero that it has to be a chance worth taking. Well, who does anything at all? Even walk out the front door? Some proportion, please. And in fact, I'm happy to say 2 hours ago, people were getting so antsy about that, the ban was dropped. At least there was some sanity today from the New South Wales Police Commissioner. Of course he wasn't going to fine couples for seeing each other.
I would put that under care, absolutely, right? Mental health, we get it, that's under care, absolutely under care, yeah?
Talking mental health, how about a little bit of joy in people's lives? And then there was the German cruise ship called the Artania that's off Perth and refusing orders from our Border Force and the West Australian Premier to go home to Germany. The ship did have sick people on board. 41 are now in hospital in Perth with this virus, and most of the others have now flown home. But there are still on board 450 crew and about a dozen passengers who couldn't fly. But Premier Mark McGowan wants them now to all sail away to Germany in case they get too sick as well, and they think they'll disinfect the ship, but maybe they'll get sick, maybe somehow, and then they'll fill Australian intensive care beds.
Well, I'm very disappointed, and I'd urge the Australian Border Force and the federal government to take steps to get the ship away. We've got to get the ship on its way. It has to go back to Germany. I suspect most of the crew want to go back to Germany. So I think the federal government needs to step up here. If the ship needs to be cleaned, we'll clean it and then get it on its way.
Now, of course the crew don't want to leave. What if people on board do happen to catch the coronavirus? It's a long trip back to Europe. By the time they get into some port that will let them have an intensive care bed, they could be dead. Are we really now so callous that we would make them take that risk? Is that what we've come to? You know, if our intensive care unit beds were nearly full, I might understand us turning away people in need, Australians first. But Western Australia has 162 intensive care beds and it's getting more. 162. And it's got just 12 people with coronavirus in them. 12. Plenty of room. We may have lost our senses in this panic, but have we really also lost our heart?